back our grand opening. The venue, well, the property itself is 96 acres and we've been renovating it for the last 3 years. It used to be a brickyard. So the venue itself is done and the campground was scheduled to open last summer, but due to some issues with permits and everything, and then COVID hit, it's opening on August 1st this year. So we changed our payment schedules, pushed back our opening date, and that's allowed us to kind of really focus on what this place is going to look like when it opens. It has given us a little bit extra time. And I mean, with the campground, people want to travel. They want to get out of Chicago, especially go somewhere not too far. People aren't maybe necessarily ready to get back on a plane right now, but 90 minutes from the city isn't bad. So we've kind of positioned ourselves as a place where you can social distance safely. You can be outside because the accommodations are outside. It's an open air facility. A tagline that we've been using is social distancing at its finest. So we have used the pandemic to kind of say that this is going to be the new way to travel, the new way to experience, I mean, life kind of in your backyard. But with the venue, that's definitely been hit really hard. And it's been difficult to connect with the community as this new business and introduce it to them when we're not even able to have events and get people out there. So with weddings especially, it's been difficult. We have had a few micro weddings where they come out, just do their ceremony, champagne toast after, maybe a small dinner, 25 people. And I do think that's kind of the direction that weddings were going in anyways. People have realized that you don't really need all of that pomp and circumstance when it comes to big weddings. So yeah, it's been rough, but I think we're going to get through it and open on August 1st, regardless of what restrictions kind of look like. Well, I mean, if we're not allowed to open, we can't open, but I think we'll be okay.
So there's that resilience and persistence, some flexibility, and I know I can get this back to Clayton. Playing the cards dealt you, and you can explain why that matters. Dennis, so am I wrong in thinking you were just immune from the effects of COVID? That was good too. Sorry, I'm having a ball.
Yeah, to a degree,
This is great.
Ag business doesn't stop. Everybody still eats food. And in that regard, new products coming out. And so it was actually a value prop to us to a degree, because if you automate, that means you have to have fewer people at your facility, or you're not so much relying on that one individual who has the skill to do this. You can now outsource it to a piece of equipment, which means anybody can operate it. So that was a value proposition to us. But I've seen many different businesses, tech businesses, actually use this as an opportunity. Another example would be an IoT company that saw an opportunity in tracking the temperature of cold stored packages with Pfizer, for example, and that part of their business took off in a massive way just because all those packages needed to be shipped in a cold way, and then you need to track and make sure that the temperature didn't go up to a certain level. So they just found a different opportunity to sell themselves and regroup and find a parallel that's close to their core business, and that was how you approach this. You can just see that as you can persevere, you can see a new opportunity. There are many different ways how you can report. For us, it was fortunately a value proposition, but could have been, it all depends on what your business is.
There are always two sides to the coin. Well, Clayton, just because I couldn't resist that comment to Stephanie, you want to provide a little context on that? And then you can talk a little, you already talked about the reaction or the pivot you all made with respect to COVID, but you have also talked to me about some of your prior endeavors and how they have affected your thinking about entrepreneurship. And I would consider you to be a very innovative person, but explain why I slapped myself in the back there when I told Stephanie about playing the cards she was dealt.
Playing the cards you're dealt, yeah. Prior to technology startups, I had a career in online poker primarily. I still played live in Vegas every year for World Series of Poker and European Poker Tour stops. My mind thinks very much in terms of expected value, so always numbers. And one statistic I really like when you start off your journey as an entrepreneur is how everyone points out 9 out of every 10 businesses fail. So another way to look at that is it just means you have to start 10 businesses to succeed. And that's kind of my approach to it. So if I have to start 10 companies to hit a home run, that's fine. But as far as playing the cards we were dealt when COVID hit, outside of switching business models and going from no consumer branding to eatlettuce.com, and that experience is now built into our actual product that is consumed. COVID, I think the biggest benefit is it forced Danon, my co-founder and CTO, and myself to become better leaders. And by doing that, we were able to make adjustments with the team and the framework for that team going forward that, frankly, I was too scared to do beforehand. And what that really comes down to is I'm very bearish on remote work. Like, I don't really believe in it, and especially at a startup's earliest stages. So making the switch of no more teammates being remote, so that caused personnel to change. We did shrink the team. The biggest we've been is 13 with 7 full-time. Now it's 5 full-time, 2 part-time. So about half the size. But yeah, no remote positions, which has increased our productivity around the farm, and especially dealing with hardware, software, and living organisms. That's been pretty key. But at the end of the day, the leadership, and I think it's the CEO's responsibility to design and implement the architecture for communication. It's a Ben Horowitz quote. But I think that's really, really important, just to take a step back, say, this is here, it's inevitable that's going to impact us in these areas. What do we do? And it has to start with leadership.
I like all those comments, and I'm not kidding. This is my next question. My next question is, and this was vetted by Megan, to ask you to comment on building an innovative team or workplace. And you can interpret that however you like, but I believe entrepreneurship is a team sport. It requires collaboration necessarily. I define team broadly, but you hit that one right on the head as well. You want to expand a little bit? Think about it this way, perhaps. You built a team that you said hardware, software, agriculture, and you've needed expertise in all of those. And my recollection is you weren't necessarily an expert in any of those. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
So tell me how you went about building that team. And were you looking for not only subject matter experts, but people who are innovative, as you all have described it, flexible, resilient, persistent, willing to deal with the unknown?
Naiveness in founders can carry you pretty far. I think most people wouldn't start the company they have 2 or 3 years in when they set up camp, so to speak, in the Trail of Sorrow.
Set up camp. It's infectious. Love this.
And I feel like naiveness can carry the founders, and the founders. So in our situation, Danon and myself are yin and yang. So he has all of the engineering strengths that I don't have. I have hopefully all of the business model and actually building out that team strength that we need. And I look at it as like step one, you have to figure out what you want to do with your company. So we're a technology company. We knew we had to raise capital from day one. It's very capital intensive. At the end of the day, we want to get the technology out there and into the world and sell the company. So Danon and I committed to kind of a 10-year journey. So anyone we recruit for the team, they have to understand that they're probably joining us below market rate as far as salary goes, but their upside is in the sweat equity with the company when we get an exit. And I see building out a team as you are looking at this puzzle, and it's an aerial view. And once you complete the puzzle, that's an exit. So that's hopefully a successful exit. If you don't get to complete the puzzle, like most startups don't, then that means you didn't get it complete, therefore no exit, shut down, wind down, etc. But every puzzle piece we need is an ideal team member. And as far as building out, we do hire based on strengths. So whether it's logistics, horticulture, robotics, software engineering, mechanical engineering, business development, customer success, sales, etc. We want to make sure that candidate is the puzzle piece, that's their strengths. They don't have to worry about their weaknesses in the organization. And the only way we've been able to do that thus far has been to figure out a bunch of ways not to do it correctly.
Hence your expected outcomes view of things. You're willing to suffer those bad hands or bad outcomes as long as you've got a process to keep moving forward. You're still in the game.
Yeah.
You have some chips left.
Some chips left.
I'm running out of rope here, but anyway. So Brady, you've talked about you have some partners who have provided financing. I think when we talked before, you shared a little bit about some of the other people on your team. Can you talk about the role of innovation in that team and or how you found or how that team has come together and maybe your role in the team?
Yeah, so I basically do everything for the company, which is, it's a lot of work, but man, we started a few companies before stumbling upon this top level suites deal. And so we kind of put together the group of people long before we even knew what we were going to do. And it's basically two guys that went to college together, and then we added in this other guy's name's Corey. So it was basically Mike, Jim, Corey, and then I was the fourth person. So the original company was actually Three Guys Media. And then I got introduced into that, and we were doing some things with advertising, some new products, and ultimately, well, COVID didn't help that one either because we were working with restaurants, like an in-person advertising experience. But so that kind of went away, and that's where we just basically shifted fully onto this top level suites. And it's really just finding people that you can trust. I think the whole thing comes down to trust. Like, we all get along great. We can all get a beer after work if we want, and hang out and talk. We'll go fishing, and everybody's really on the same page. We might not have the most diverse group in terms of opinions, but as we grow the company, that'll definitely be a focal point in hiring, just to get some more ideas out there. But it's really just building the team of trust and going from there is what I would say.
Have you gravitated to respective roles closer to your individual strengths? And when it sounds like the three guys kind of found their way together, probably knowing each other, probably said, hey, let's go do something. None of us want jobs. Then you came along. Why did they even open the door to a fourth guy? Did you bring some complementary skills?
Yes. So most of them have a very similar kind of sales minded, they're all sales minded. And then I was 20 years younger than them. So I kind of had the tech space, marketing and advertising, things like that figured out. So I basically got my start building websites, and I was already working for one of the business partners. And I just basically said, hey, like, I like the group, I want in, and everyone was very welcoming, and they wanted me in there. And so now my positions shifted from a tech. So I was originally the CTO, just doing IT for the company. And now I just do pretty much everything. I wear all the hats, marketing. When the Chiefs call, I'm the one who talks to them. If the Vikings call, I talk to them. Cincinnati, Western and Southern Open calls, I talk to them. And then they help generate leads locally as well. So like, they work with the Iowa State Fair, and everyone just kind of has their own niche and network, and we just kind of fill in as needed. So it's just, basically filling in where everyone is needed and getting things done. It's just a group of guys that get things done when they need to be done.
There's again, this theme that I'm hearing it from all of you of, there's some reaction, but it's also, you have to have your eyes open to see that some of these things are opportunities, to see that there are different ways to go. And then you have to have, I don't know what the right YouTube term is, but the gumption, let's say, that's a single, I was thinking of a pair, but anyway, to do something about it. And I think pulling the trigger as an entrepreneur is what sets entrepreneurs apart. I really believe that what all of you have done is taken some things you knew or cared about and said, and you've taken that step and you pushed it. You really stepped into I don't think it's an abyss, but it's the space. I think that is the primary differentiator between entrepreneurs and others. And so much of what I'm hearing you all describe is innovation as driven by your circumstances. It is responsive both to your skills, your resources, and your perception of customer needs. I'm fascinated by that. That's a much better definition than I was going to throw out, so I can find a way. Stephanie, we talked a little bit earlier about the evolution of your team and your role, and there's a little bit of you do everything, as Brady has said, and Clayton delivers lettuce. I love seeing him, and he somehow finds the time, which I marvel at. But talk a little bit about the team building aspects in Camp Aramoni, and perhaps in your development coming out of school and diving right into the startup?
Yeah, so my situation was a little bit different. I did not have any choice in our foundational team because it's my family. So I'm sure we could all give detailed reports on each other's strengths and weaknesses. So really, as we started to hire people outside of the family, we really had to look at who we were as a group and find people who fit into those values and shared the same values that we do. So to Clayton's point, we really tried to play to each other's strengths and weaknesses. So one of the first people we hired was our chef. We have, like, everyone in our family has really no experience in food and beverage. So we brought someone in who knew how to do that. Our most recent hire was a venue manager for the event space. And she is now taking on all of the weddings, which is something I did not enjoy. So now I'm kind of giving that off to her, and she loves weddings. So it's just kind of building on what people already have in place, what they're good at, recognizing that, rewarding them for the things that they're doing, and really considering the values of the team as a group, and then also individual values and what each kind of specific person brings to the table.
Dennis, how about you? What's the role of collaboration for you, and does it relate to either the innovative technology you use or how you're going about trying to address those customer needs?
Yeah, of course, I'm oblivious to many things outside of tech. I have to learn them through partnering and collaborating with other people. So our team is not just the set of technical engineers, guys and gals. It's also the advisors who came in and just said, I'm willing to volunteer and work with you on marketing aspects or sales, or hey, your website sucks and you got to fix this, or like your domain's just not going to be searchable, or a legal team which just says that this is how you structure your provisional patent. These are the timelines you need to be mindful of. So you have to be able to take that criticism and look at yourself objectively, and we can recognize that you don't have everything that it takes, and be willing to take criticism from others and kind of fill in the spots and the gaps. But I think the guys pretty much, and Stephanie described this pretty well, that it's a puzzle. You got to fit in those pieces. You see what you're not good at and what potentially don't want to do, and just find somebody else to kind of do that role. And I'm sure you can relate to that as well in your legal practice experience.
Well, I can. I'm also listening to you and how comfortable you are with the startup process. I came into academia out of the investment banking world, certainly a different pace. I started at the bottom of the pyramid, a place I had not been in some time. It was a good experience for me. It's still an academic pace, it's still slow. And I think there are certainly, I've had entrepreneurial colleagues, both in how they run their classes and the programs, but most of my colleagues are scholars and their research is often inventive, but it's often academic in orientation. In other words, you couldn't make a nickel off of it. And I find that really tough. I'm intrigued because I met Dennis. He's got all the letters and trappings behind him to be one of those academic scholars, and in fact he is, but you strike me as driven by wanting to apply what you've learned. One, to solve problems, but two, in a way that you can make a living or develop wealth and do something meaningful and having a large impact beyond academia. Is that a fair description of you? I mean, do you embrace that? And if so, do you feel different in your world of academia? Like I feel different in my world of academia?
It depends. So like the life sciences academia is starting to switch more to the startup way, because what you start to realize as a PI, as a professor, that if your research is too narrow and it focuses on just kind of building out something that's too fundamental and actually doesn't have a value, then you're probably not going to get funded or get a grant, next grant, and the one afterwards. So what I start seeing as a trend in academia is that a lot of professors actually do either co-found startups or are in advising positions where their technology somehow finds a flow into other applications. But the way I see it is, so I'm a biochemist by training. We do fundamental work. Engineers are the ones who take that fundamental technology and knowledge and theory and try to use it for something. But it's not, it's the entrepreneurs who actually use it and actually give it to, or find a way to channel that into the actual community of people who use it. And as a good PI who's going to go far, good professor, good academic, you're the one who needs to do all three phases. Otherwise, you won't get funded, just like a startup essentially.
Well, great, that's actually very helpful. I share your, both your view of the value of that. It does take different roles. It is a different mindset. I've worked with engineers and sometimes they encounter the same thing. I've worked with engineers who were very happy solving problems that nobody cared about because it was the challenge of solving that problem. It's kind of like playing solitaire. So in a little bit of a shift, and I would hope that perhaps you could share some practical advice. Individually, when you feel stuck or you were confronted with something brand new, which all of you have experienced in your ventures, how do you become unstuck? What do you do? What do you say to yourself? Is it 3 deep breaths? Is it just dive in? Is it taking a walk? Is it talking to your colleagues? But what is your personal process for devising a solution which in its very nature is innovative because you haven't encountered it before? And you've all created new business models. Every single one of you has tweaked the business model, which I think is marvelous. But what do you each do and I'm guessing almost every day you're confronted with something that you've never been confronted with before. What's your coping mechanism? I'm looking at you, so I'm going to start with. I don't know why
I just go get beat up, Tom. I put some boxing gloves on and take a couple hits to the face, and I forget all about it. When I'm not doing that, as a boxing coach at Iowa State University here,
I was going to work it in eventually.
So personally, boxing has been great because it forces you to focus on the moment, and taking a step away from the problem at hand is sometimes key. On the other coin, or the other side of the coin, I do a lot of running on the trails, so out in the middle of nowhere, just me. So if I'm running for a couple of hours, I can more efficiently, most times, think through a problem and figure out who I need to talk with to get more information on how to actually solve that. Trying to think of a good example. So circle back to me.
All right, I will.
I'll come up with
I'm
one.
happy to. And I'm glad you brought up the boxing because I think Mike Tyson has one of the great comments on planning, and I don't have it on here, but I keep thinking about, I do think planning is good. He actually had a comment on plans. All of you certainly had visions for what you wanted to do, because I've talked to all of you individually, but what you're doing has changed. Every single one of you has experienced change. And Mike Tyson famously said, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And you've all been punched in the mouth.
That reminds me. So I will say on the other side of that, in thinking about resources, I think it's important to have someone who can keep you accountable, who is likely just a couple of years ahead of you on the journey. So in my case, I have a founder coach. And then I also have a therapist and a running coach. All 3 people are keeping me accountable every single week. But I think that's key because they've likely been there, done that before, and they are a resource where you can be your transparent and completely open self.
So I wasn't going to come back to you because you mentioned Talib and the Black Swan, and he actually argued early in the pandemic that he was getting tired of everybody calling it pandemic and Black Swan because he didn't think it was a Black Swan. And you opened your comments it wasn't. It was foreseeable. Not detailed, not in day, not in the aspect of the virus, but we knew a pandemic was coming. In fact, a lot of people was coming. And then that anti-fragile, I think being prepared is different than having a plan, but planning is part of being prepared. And I'm intrigued, Clayton, you have a team, you have a personal team that has helped you prevail through the challenges of startups and maximize your capabilities. That's what I heard you just say. You found wisdom in this writer, I'm assuming you've never known, can you talk about your mechanism for dealing with, being chief cook and bottle washer and 20-year older partners, and how you have dealt with the inevitable curveballs tossed your way?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things you can say. I feel like people, they can tolerate a different amount of chaos, from somebody who's an accountant up to me, who just prefers every day needs to be different. Everything needs to be unique. I only do what I want to do, and I do what needs to get done for my business. And that's really it. Is entrepreneurship. It's not for everybody, and that's for sure. I know it's the lifestyle that I want, just because I need a challenge. That's actually why I went to Iowa State, got my mechanical engineering degrees, because it taught me how to solve problems. I had no intention of doing anything with mechanical engineering, but it's just problem solving for 4 years. And that's what I became good at. Is when something pops up, I have no idea about it. I just learn and I figure it out. I do it. There's so many educational resources out there. And then a lot of people, it's just kind of how you recharge your batteries at the end of the day. And for me, like, I socialize a lot, so I'll go out, hang out with my friends. I can talk through things, and that really helps me kind of wrap my mind about different problems. And then especially just sleeping. If I get stuck, if I just go to bed, I'll wake up and I'll have the answer. It's like, oh, why did I not do that?
Absolutely.
So
No, thank
it's a
you.
variety of
I'm glad you shared that. I want Stephanie and Dennis both share. We've got 5 minutes. I have one question. It's going to be a lightning round. You're going to get a very short answer, but I'll try to give you a minute to think about it. But what are your coping mechanisms, Steph, for dealing with the unknown, coming up with some of these solutions, which you've worked through with your family? Maybe you don't feel like they're your own, but how have you coped with that?
Yeah, I feel like I have a really strong support system. So going to people in my life and talking through things, like with my mom specifically, sometimes I'll call her and I'll be like, this is Stephanie, your daughter, not your coworker. I want to talk to you about things. And then we just talk that way. And there's kind of like that separation between our family and our business, which is something that we constantly have to work at, but it's been good in the last year, especially with COVID. I feel like that's kind of brought us all closer together, whether we wanted that or not. But with us also being a brick and mortar business, 96 beautiful acres on a river, sometimes in the middle of the day, I'll just get up and I'll go outside and I'll go for a hike and clear my mind that way. So working out and being outside, that's something I've always liked.
How about you, Dennis? I'm sure you've stared at something and it just didn't add up.
Yeah,
Or
when
you-
you asked me that question, actually, I was smiling because right before this, I was staring at the computer and stuff wasn't working out. You keep trying different things. It's like exploration with curiosity. You can't like go down on yourself and be mad about it. You just need to continuously try it from different angles. And then when you run out of energy, I relate to Clayton because I like going for a run. Oftentimes, if I go into a group meeting, I come back and I say something along the lines of, I was running and I thought about this, or like displacing myself and just going for a hike like Stephanie too. So all of the above, essentially.
That's cool. So my watch didn't think of this, but I think we have enough time. So I'm going to throw out this question. I'll give you just a few seconds, and I want a short one phrase answer. If you had limitless resources, something which I'm sure you've all dreamed of, boy, wouldn't this make my life easier? By the way, from a startup perspective, no, it wouldn't. But anyway, it just changes the problem. If you had limitless resources, what innovative what problem would you pursue searching for an innovative solution? It can be anything. It doesn't have to be your business. It could be large or small. But if you had everything you needed, what problem would you tackle with an innovative solution? So I'm going to give you 2:29. You get about 10 seconds.
I'll go first.
Dennis goes first.
So for me, I'd probably pursue innovation of implementing artificial intelligence in drug discovery to make new drugs to make everybody's lives better, longer, essentially.
Cool. Stephanie.
I don't know how innovative this is, but I would expand the state of Illinois' tourism budget by a couple million and bring the definition of glamping to kind of a mainstream understanding. You look at like California's state website, they've got whole sections about camping and glamping. You go to state of Illinois, you search glamping, an article comes up that mentions a place in Wisconsin, and that's it. So I would kind of bring that to other people's attention.
Governor. Legislature, you better be listening. Brady.
I feel bad, but I didn't have like some grandiose idea about like saving, like solving world hunger or something like that. So I'll say solving world hunger. Let's do that. If I limitless resources, I'll make it happen.
It's out there. Clayton?
If Nebula succeeds, we remove seasonality in food for existence. I think that's a pretty worthwhile pursuit. No one has to worry about that again. So Brady, there you go. There you go.
And there's a role in there. It's not gonna help glamping very much, but there won't be any hungry people and your chef will be busy. So I think we're out of time. I hope if anybody out there in the Cosmoverse saw this, these are brilliant young people doing amazing things and they are making the world a better place. It was my privilege. Thank you.
There you go.